Georgia versus Clemson. This is not only the biggest game of this year, this could be one of the biggest games of the entire decade. Today we're going to do game prediction between Georgia and Clemson, and I'm going to do the season predictions for both Clemson and Georgia. Let's go. What is going on, everybody? It's me again, Golden Blue Dude. Hey, if you haven't already, go ahead and hit that like and subscribe button. I do college football videos every single day. It's what I do. Today is my biggest prediction video to date. This prediction video is about Clemson and Georgia. I'm going to predict the game, and I'm going to predict the season of both of these teams. Today, I decided to do a little bit bigger and go Clemson Memorial Stadium in front of Howard's Rock. Yeah, that's the real rock right behind me. They cram over 80,000 people into this stadium, but this game will not be played in Clemson. This will be played in Charlotte, a neutral site game. A lot is on the line for this game. First, we're going to talk about Georgia. Last year, Georgia went 8-2, second in the SEC East, which I predicted correctly. Here's the weird thing about Georgia. Under Kirby Smart, they've actually been trending just slightly in the wrong direction. In 2016, they went 8-5. 2017, that great season, 13-2. 2018, 11-3, still not bad. 2019, 12-2. And then last year, 8-2. If you look at it, it's slightly going downhill for Georgia. Not to mention Kirby Smart is 0-3 against Nick Saban. If you're going to get to the playoffs and win a national championship, you're going to have to beat Nick Saban and Alabama. Dabo Swinney has done it twice. Georgia might have one of the most explosive offenses in the nation this year. Last year they averaged 32.3 points per game. That's 38th in the nation, and averaged 424.4 yards a game. They were 56th in rushing, which kind of surprises me because Georgia is known for running the ball, but they were actually better at passing last year. Last year they were 45th in the nation in passing. Total offense 41st. So yeah, they do have to improve on that if they want to get to the national championship. Georgia actually might be strongest on the offensive side of the ball this year. They have 7 starters coming back, including 3 on the offensive line. They have amazing talent and great depth on offense. But it all starts with their quarterback. Quarterback JT Daniels. Georgia looked like a completely different team once JT Daniels took over the reins last year. Stetson Bennett not getting the job done. Last year JT Daniels went 80 for 119. That's 67.2%. Threw for 1,231 yards, 10 touchdowns, but just 2 interceptions. Here's their running game, which they do need to improve on. Starting with running back Zamir White, 144 carries for 779 yards. That's 5.4 yards a carry and 11 touchdowns. You also have running back James Cook, 45 carries for 303 yards. That's 5.4 yards a carry and 3 touchdowns. Now let's talk about their passing game. This is where Georgia will be the most dangerous this year. Starting with the tight end, Georgia has an embarrassment of riches with talent with tight ends and wide receiver. Tight end Darnell Washington, 7 receptions for 166 yards. Then the transfer from LSU, tight end Eric Gilbert, 35 receptions for 368 yards, 2 touchdowns. Now the wide receiving corps. Wide receiver Curious Jackson, 36 receptions for 514 yards, 3 touchdowns. Wide receiver Jermaine Burton, 27 receptions for 404 yards, 3 touchdowns. The guy you need to keep your eye on. Not many people know this name. Wide receiver Arian Smith. Last year, just 2 receptions for 86 yards and 1 touchdown, but this guy's explosive. Wide receiver Rosemary Jackson, 4 receptions for 62 yards and 1 touchdown. Wide receiver Dominic Blaylock. This guy's dangerous. 18 receptions for 310 yards and 5 touchdowns. Their dynamic wide receiver George Pickens, he was injured in spring practice, but there is an outside chance that he could be back either in the middle of the season or towards the end of the season, and that would just make this offense that much more dangerous. Now let's look at Georgia's defense. This is usually where their strength lies. I don't think that's the case this year, but I do think their front 7 will be the strength of this defense, starting with their defensive line. Defensive end Trayvon Walker, 13 tackles, 6 by himself, 1 sack, 1 forced fumble, and 1 pass deflection. Defensive tackle Jordan Davis, 16 tackles, 7 by himself, 1 sack. Defensive tackle Devontae Wyatt, 25 tackles, 12 by himself, 1 pass deflection. Now the linebacking corps. Linebacker Adam Anderson, 14 tackles, 12 by himself, 6.5 sacks, 2 forced fumbles, and 1 pass deflection. Linebacker Quay Walker, 43 tackles, 26 by himself, 1 sack. Linebacker Nakobe Dean, 71 tackles, tackles, 39 by himself, 1.5 sacks. Last year they allowed 20 points per game, that's 17th, not bad, and allowed 321 yards a game. They averaged a 95.5% scoring rate, meaning the other team scored 95.5% of the time once the other team got into the red zone. That has to improve. Pretty much 21 out of 22 trips, the opponent scored a touchdown or a field goal once they got in the red zone. Now let's look at Georgia's secondary. Really, the only concerns in Georgia is the secondary, and it's because of the inexperience at cornerback. But I will say the Bulldogs could have the best safety rotation in the nation, especially after getting safety Tyke Smith from West Virginia. Yes, that is going to hurt us. Starting with their cornerbacks. Cornerback Jaleb Kimber. He had 2 solo tackles last year. Incoming 5-star recruit Keely Ringo. He's 6'2", 205 pounds. He's going to have to be a difference maker right off the bat. And then the West Virginia transfer, safety Tyke Smith. 61 tackles, 33 by himself, 2 interceptions, and 5 pass deflections. Free safety Lewis Hine. 52 tackles, 38 by himself, 3 pass deflections. Strong safety Christopher Smith. 26 tackles, 14 by himself, 1 pass deflection. If Georgia does have a weakness this year, it will be in the secondary with those cornerbacks. They are inexperienced, but they are very talented. Oh, and here's one more thing. Kirby Smart needs to stop overthinking, especially when he has the lead at halftime against a tough opponent. He overthinks and gives the game away. That's exactly when things go wrong for Georgia. Kirby needs to keep doing what he's doing when he has those halftime leads. He starts overthinking and changes the game plan for whatever reason. Here's Georgia's 2021 college football schedule. First, a neutral game against Clemson in Charlotte. I'll predict that game at the end of this video. Then a home game against UAB. Win. South Carolina at home. Rivalry, take it seriously, but win. At Vanderbilt. Win. Arkansas at home. Win. At Auburn. Win. Kentucky at home. Win. But Kentucky's going to be good this year. Then they get their bye week. Then they get Florida in Jacksonville. I think Georgia embarrasses Florida this year. Win. They get a tough Missouri team, but at home. Win. At Tennessee. Win. Charleston Southern at home. Win. At Georgia Tech. Win. So yes, I have Georgia going either 11-1 or undefeated 12-0, depending on my Clemson game prediction. Now it's time to talk about Clemson. The line is out, and right now Clemson is a 4.5-point favorite. No Lawrence, no Etienne, no Rodgers, no problem. Dabo Swinney has turned Clemson into a recruiting machine. New quarterback DJ Uiagalelei is being hyped more than Watson and Lawrence. He's actually a preseason favorite to contend for the Heisman Trophy. And so far, he has looked the part. He looked great against Notre Dame last year. Clemson is going for 7 straight ACC titles and 7 straight playoff appearances. Dabo Swinney has said this team is definitely further along than last year's group. Let's start with their offense. The quarterback, DJ Uiagalelei. Last year, he was 78 for 117. That's 66.7%. Threw for 914 yards, 5 touchdowns, but no interceptions. He's also a dual threat quarterback, and I think we'll see more of this year. Last year, 28 carries for 60 yards. That's 2.1 yards a carry and 5 touchdowns. Now let's look at Clemson's running game. It might take a slight step backwards this year, especially at the beginning of the year. But by the end of the year, I think they'll be fine. To go along with the dual threat quarterback, running back Lynn J. Dixon, 42 carries, 190 yards, 4.5 yards a carry, and 2 touchdowns. Now let's talk about Clemson's passing game. This is where the Tigers will be especially dangerous this year. Starting with the tight end Braden Galloway, 27 receptions for 369 yards, 2 touchdowns. Tight end Davis Allen, 16 receptions for 247 yards, 4 touchdowns. Now their wide receiving core. Good luck covering this group of wide receivers. Starting with wide receiver Justin Ross. He's back, but in 2019 he had 66 receptions for 865 yards and 8 touchdowns. Wide receiver E.J. Williams, 24 receptions for 306 yards, 2 touchdowns. Wide receiver Joseph Ngata, 7 receptions for 83 yards. Wide receiver Brandon Spector, 16 receptions for 136 yards. Wide receiver Frank Ladson Jr., 18 receptions for 281 yards, 3 touchdowns. And wide receiver Aju, he had 2 receptions for 41 yards and 1 touchdown. There will be 3 starters back on the offensive line, and I expect the offensive line to be much better than what it was last year. That was one of Clemson's weaknesses last year. This offense is very talented, very deep, and very hungry. Now let's talk about Clemson's defense. 10 starters are back on the defense, and defensive coordinator Brent Venables says they're focusing on physicality this year. They don't want to just win ball games, they want to dominate opponents. Starting with their defensive line. Defensive end KJ Henry, 23 tackles, 13 by himself, 3.5 sacks, 2 pass deflections. Defensive end Justin Maskell, 18 tackles, 9 by himself, 2 sacks. Defensive tackle Tyler Davis, 13 tackles, 9 by himself, 2 sacks. Defensive tackle Brian Breesy, 23 tackles, 13 by himself, 4 sacks, 1 forced fumble, 2 2 pass deflections. And defensive end Miles Murphy, 38 tackles, 18 by himself, 4 sacks, 3 forced fumbles, 1 pass deflection. Now their linebacking core. Linebacker Trenton Simpson, 28 tackles, 17 by himself, 4 sacks, 1 forced fumble. Linebacker Balin Spector, 65 tackles, 35 by himself, 4.5 sacks, 2 forced fumbles, 1 pass deflection. And linebacker James Skalski, this is the guy. 35 tackles, 22 by himself, 1.5 sacks, and 2 pass deflections. And he loves to hit hard. Unlike Georgia, Clemson's secondary is actually very talented, very experienced, and very deep. Starting with their cornerbacks. Cornerback Andrew Booth Jr., 27 tackles, 22 by himself, 1 sack, 2 interceptions, 4 pass deflections. Quarterback Mario Goodrich, 13 tackles, 6 by himself, 2 interceptions, 1 pass deflection. Cornerback Sheridan Jones, 16 tackles, 13 by himself, 1 interception, 1 pass deflection. Free safety Nolan Turner, 53 tackles, 39 by himself, 3 interceptions, and 2 pass deflections. Strong safety Landon Sanders, 25 tackles, 22 by himself, 1 sack, 1 forced fumble, 1 pass deflection. The key to Clemson's return to the national championship is consistency. They have the talent, they have the experience, and they have the depth. Brent Venables' words of toughening up the defense was music to Tiger fans' ears. That's actually been missing the past couple of years, and they've still been pretty good. Clemson has the potential of not just being good, but being dominating. Here's a look at Clemson's 2021 college football schedule. First, the neutral game against Georgia in Charlotte. I'll predict that here in just a minute. Home against South Carolina State, win. Home against Georgia Tech, win. Tough road trip to NC State, but I still think it's a win. Boston College at home, win. And they get their bye week. At Syracuse, win. But you better come in focused in that game. And then right behind that, at Pitt. Same situation, but I still think it's a win. And Pitt is better than Syracuse. Florida State at home, that's a win. At Louisville, win. UConn at home, win. Wake Forest at home, win. At South Carolina, win. So the same story goes for Clemson. I have them going either 11-1 or 12-0 undefeated, depending on this Georgia game. That's why this game is one of the most important games that I've seen in a long time. Whoever wins this game is getting to the playoffs, bottom line. This is for a playoff spot lock. Now it's time for the actual game prediction. Georgia and Clemson. This is going to be one of the best games of the season, possibly in a decade. Both of these teams are going to be top 10, possibly top 5 going into this game. I think the winner of this game is a playoff lock. Loser still has a chance, but they'll have a lot of work to do. Talent versus talent. Georgia actually does have a little bit more talent, but Clemson has the coaching experience. They've been in the big moment many times. They don't have a coach that overthinks the situation. Unfortunately, Georgia does. Kirby Smart, he's a good coach. They get a lot of talent at Georgia, but he tends to overthink things, especially when he has the lead at halftime against a tough opponent. Can he stop overthinking? Can he finally get that signature win, get back to the playoffs, and win a national championship for Georgia, the first one since 1980? I think this comes down to experience and coaching. Georgia, you still can make the playoffs, but you're not beating Clemson. Clemson goes into Charlotte, beats Georgia, gets into the playoffs, and will be a legitimate national championship contender this year. That's all I got for you this day. Like and subscribe if you haven't already. And I'll see you on my next show.